Hello and welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones and we are so glad to have you here. We're diving into the 2025 race for governor here in New Jersey, and we've invited every candidate to be on the show before the June 10th primary. Today, we start with 3 of the candidates in no particular order. I speak with Ed Durr, the South Jersey trucker who stunned the political world by toppling a Titan back in 2021 and winning a seat in the New Jersey State Senate. He says he's ready to fight for what he calls a broken New Jersey. We also have Sean Spiller, the former mayor of Montclair, who is also a teacher and heads the state's most powerful teachers union, the NJEA, New Jersey Education Association. He says he's banking on grassroots support to make the Garden State work for the working class. Fulop up, though, we welcome Steve Fulop to the show. The Jersey City mayor and Marine veteran wants to bring his ideas and energy to Trenton. Steve Fulop, mayor of Jersey City, Democratic candidate for governor in the New Jersey primary. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Number one issue in New Jersey, every single race for governor, anytime you're running for anything in New Jersey, it's that affordability. If you win the primary, if you're elected governor, what are you going to do? What concrete steps can you take to help make New Jersey more affordable and take that burden off the homeowners in New Jersey?
I'll start by saying that our campaign is different because it's more substantive on policy than most, more detailed. If you go to our website, you would see that. And I think being a mayor is a different set of skill sets and qualifications for understanding what drives property taxes in New Jersey. There's a couple of things that you could do right out of the gate to change New Jersey. Number one is I think transparency on the budget is a problem, how the budget process works generally in Trenton. Sunlight cleanses that. I think it's really important. Number two is unfunded mandates. Being a mayor, you see a lot of well-intentioned things come out of Trenton, and there's no carrot and stick tied to implementation of that, which ultimately leads to property taxes going up. I think you need to address that. Third is the school funding formula. I think that's a big driver of property taxes. You need a governor that's bold and willing to get into that. And then fourth is, you pay a corruption tax in New Jersey. It's not a pleasant thing, but you see it time and time again on how New Jersey operates, and I think that there's an opportunity for change around that, and that will drive down taxes as well.
What do you mean, the corruption tax?
Well, I think that the way that the line system and the ballots have worked for a long time in New Jersey, it's driven lobbyists and party bosses to dictate who and what holds office. So if you ask, why did the public push back on public records reform last year, and it still went through
the
in
Open
Trenton?
Public Records Act.
Right. So why would Trenton do that? Or why would they change campaign finance counter to the public? It's because they don't feel they're accountable to you. They feel they're accountable to this political boss. And that's a tax that people pay based on the lobbyist and culture in Trenton. And I think that needs to change. And when the ballot changes that have happened in the last year, there's an opportunity for that as well here in New Jersey.
You talk about your campaign being more policy driven. There are a lot of policies, immigration reform, education, the cost of doing business in New Jersey. Take your pick. If you're elected, first 100 days, what do you see as your top priorities?
I think there are 2 things that you need to do in the first 30 days. Let me start there. And it's really kind of focused on the revenue side of the conversation. I think being a mayor, I realized that there are things that I could get done in the first 30 or 60 days from a political standpoint that you probably could never get done in the subsequent 3.5 years from political capital. I think you need to revisit the tax brackets. A millionaire's tax from 20 years ago is no longer a millionaire's tax today. People's income have changed. You need to reassess the highest portion to capture $2.5, $3 million, et cetera. And the second thing is New Jersey Transit. The governor put in place a 5-year funding source consistent with everything Trenton does. They don't solve the problem. They did it only for 5 years. You need to put that into perpetuity so you can bond against that and actually fix some of the structural issues there. First things that I would do.
When it comes to immigration reform, you have talked about, being very much behind the Immigration Trust Act, protecting immigrants. But when you talk to perhaps some of the colleagues on the other side of the aisle, those running for the Republican side, they say, immigration, this is putting people who are not here legally, they're putting an unfair strain on our system using those resources. Now, in Jersey City, you very much said you stand behind the Immigration Trust Act. So talk a little bit about what exactly you mean, and talk about what you mean.
Let me take a step back for a second, and it's a talking point from the Republicans as they talk about kind of this immigration problem in New Jersey. And we fail to acknowledge the fact that Jack Ciattarelli himself supported licenses for undocumented people in New Jersey. He was an advocate for that, right, prior to the conversation today. You talk about college funding in schools. I mean, he voted for that stuff in Trenton. Bill Spadea, the same, right? And so I would take a step back and think about the political opportunists that they are in the moment of time doing a 180. I think people want somebody who has core values and a history and is willing to lean into an issue and say, this is why I believe this to be accurate. We've been at the forefront of the immigration issue for a long time in New Jersey, in Jersey City. We have the only nationally accredited immigration office. We've been at the forefront of refugee resettling from Afghanistan and Ukraine. And I think that one of the things that makes Jersey City a special place to raise a family or work is the diversity and culture that exists there. Nobody would dispute the fact that a hardened criminal should not be on the streets. Right? Nobody would dispute that, me included. But I do think that we are all entitled to due process and protections of the Constitution. I shared in the debate that my father's business was raided by ICE. Right? They never took anybody, but whoever they were looking for, they didn't find. But they went apartment to apartment in that building, looking for somebody, and scaring a lot of people without warrants. Right? And the reality is that the Immigration Trust Act protects people consistent with the Constitution and due process. And to me, that's really important. And I think that New Jersey needs to stand up for that as a place that is very, very diverse. The one other thing I would tell you is that a lot of those undocumented workers are working in jobs around farming, agriculture, maybe in the back of a restaurant, right? And I don't know how the public is going to feel when costs start to be impacted by the changes in the structure as it relates to who's working those jobs and who wants those jobs. Right?
You're talking about the unintended consequences.
The unintended consequences. So I think that we're still in this honeymoon phase, right, where people look at TV and they see this guy home in from ICE talking tough, and they're like, all right, great. And there might be some racism and stereotypes associated with that, but the reality is that I think the pendulum will swing back. People like New Jersey because ultimately it is a diverse and great place to raise a family. We agree, criminals shouldn't be here. Due process is important though.
When it comes to affordable housing, that is another issue in New Jersey.
Yeah.
A lot of communities are feeling an undue pressure to have a certain amount of affordable housing. Urban areas sometimes are able to accommodate that more. So can you talk a little bit about how New Jersey addresses affordable housing?
Yeah, I mean, I testified in Trenton. I was the only one that testified at the current bill, the flaws on it. I think places like Jersey City and Montclair and Newark should participate, Hoboken, in the affordable housing numbers. They don't. You could lessen the strain and burden on some of the suburban areas. I think that Trenton can do better in subsidizing some of those developments so that they don't have to have 80% more units, which impact communities. I think that's a problem. And I think Trenton needs to create more transparency around who and what municipalities are operating in a good way versus a less good way. And that way the conversation won't be hijacked by the NIMBYs, the not in my backyard people, right? Which is what happens today in New Jersey. And I think Trenton needs to reward those municipalities that are doing a good job. So when a mayor says, hey, look, you're making me build all these units and it's a strain on my school or sewers or roads, I think there's validity to that argument, and Trenton needs to reward those people that are moving forward properly with more resources. And as governor, I would do that. I think that, our track record is we've built more housing than anybody in New Jersey. I got a lot of experience in this. I know a thing about this, and it goes back to what I said earlier. In order to be an effective governor, having experience on the municipal level is really important.
All right. Well, Steve Fulop, Mayor of Jersey City, Democratic candidate for governor. Thank you for taking the time to talk about your top priorities as you're running for governor. Thank you.
Thank you.
New Jersey packs a lot of wow into every winter getaway.
Wow.
So come and get your wow on till you're all warm and fuzzy inside. New Jersey, it's one wow after another, after another, after another. You get it. Find your wow at visitnj.org. Little state, lotta.
All right, Ed Durr, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's go to the top number one issue that seems to be an ongoing issue in New Jersey, and that is the issue of affordability. Families are feeling the pinch at every turn. What concretes can you take, if elected governor, to address the affordability in New Jersey and help ease the burden on New Jersey families?
Well, as you said, it's the issue. And I think it's the number one and it's the only issue because everything works off of the affordability. If you can't afford to pay your utilities, your gas, your mortgage, nothing else really matters. As I said before, I think one of the biggest problems New Jersey has is we have a spending problem. We spend like drunken sailors. You see it yesterday with Governor Murphy. He went and passed a budget that is now $58.1 billion. That's what, almost $23 billion over what Governor Christie had in just under 7 years. That is unsustainable. We cannot continue to go down this road. We have to keep the businesses and the companies here and constantly raising taxes and raising the affordability problem.
Yeah.
So I would address that by cutting the spending, cutting the budget, and cutting taxes to bring companies back.
Yeah. And in New Jersey, in the legislature, it's all controlled by Democrats. You're a Republican. How would you anticipate? And again, let me start by saying you shocked the political world in 2021 when Ed the truck driver ran in South Jersey and unseated, surprisingly, the incumbent state Senate President Steve Sweeney. Shocked the political world. You got into Trenton, were there 2 years in the state Senate. How do you think you're going to be successful as a governor? You were able to stay in the legislature for 2 years. What did you learn from that experience, and how do you think that you will be successful if elected governor?
Well, there's a few avenues to take. As I'm not a big fan of the EO, the executive order, but it is a tool in the toolbox. So it's a means. There is also the line item veto power that the governor has over the budget. So you have that ability to shrink the budget down, regardless of what the legislator decides. You can, work things to an advantage. And then there's always the old school barter and trade. They want things, I want things, we'll work together. I'm a person who understands government ultimately is about compromise. Yeah. Everybody shouldn't get all what they want. It's about compromise because you want to meet the needs of the whole, the masses, not just one individual, not just one group. You have to compromise and adhere to what will be best for everybody.
How difficult is that? Because again, you were in the legislative branch, moving up to the executive branch, the state's chief executive officer. That is a different set of skills, a different way of working together. How do you see those skills translating?
Well, I don't see that much as a problem because I've, in a smaller fashion, a smaller role as basically running the office, or I've had opportunity of, my father was self-employed and helped to operate his business. There's a nuance similar to it. It's granted it's a larger set here running the state, but I'm going to have good people around me. You're not just hiring me. And I always preface that as I'm here seeking a job. I'm interviewing for a job to the people. You're hiring me to do a service, and I'm going to bring the right people along with me. And New Jersey has a lot of great people in the state that we can tap that will help make this state great again.
I mean, that's a great way to look at it, interviewing for the job. So as you're out and about, you're talking to, not your constituents anymore, but potential constituents, former constituents, the New Jersey voters. What are they telling you as, perhaps they're interviewing you for the job, or as you're looking at, what are they saying to you? What is most important to them? What do they want to get done? What are they saying?
Well, again, with each area has its own nuance of what it's most important to them. The shore, it's the wind turbines, it's by area, the GCL, when people not familiar with the Camden, Glassboro line. And then you'll have up in, like last night, I was up in Morris County, it's the Highlands Act. There's different areas that have different problems. There's road issues over here, this area, the heavy traffic, and I've been up and down this turnpike 1,000 times, and the road is brutal. Just fix the potholes. But everybody wants to know that you're going to actually do what you say. And I've always been a person that my word is my bond. I'm old school that way. If I tell you something, that's what you're going to get from me. And it's pretty much been the case. You can look at what I've said on the campaign trail as to what I've presented in legislation to what I voted on. I stand by pretty much the same commitment all the way through. And I don't give.
Right. So when you're talking to candidates, people will bring up all kinds of issues, from immigration reform, from transgender rights, to a lot of safety and security. But some of the things that I'm hearing you touch on are just, can people afford to stay in their homes? Can they get to work without getting stuck in traffic jams? Can you kind of, just talk a little bit about, if you had to rank your top priorities, your first 100 days in office, what would you prioritize?
I think you would probably be similar to any of the other Republican candidates is sanctuary state has to end. Because we have an illegal alien problem in this state. Governor Murphy doesn't want to admit to it, but we're probably close to 1 million illegal aliens here. And illegal aliens, not only it shouldn't be here, but it becomes a drain on the system. We end up with, they get free health care, free schooling, free medical. It just continues, and that's a drain on our resources for the citizens of the state. So sanctuary state would be one of the priorities. I want to bring businesses back, so we have to reduce our corporate tax. We have to be in line with the surrounding states. We're the highest in everybody around us. We have to get back in line to draw the companies back here. Companies come back, jobs come back. Jobs come back, we increase the revenue, which more people paying into the pot lessens the burden of you and I. So it's just the basic economic school of thought. The more paying into it.
Yeah, final thoughts here. If you were elected governor, how would you anticipate working with the Trump administration? How would you see that going? Because you have come out as a big supporter of Donald Trump. New Jersey is a little more in the middle. Final thoughts.
I don't think there would be any issue whatsoever. I'm not just going to be a lapdog for Donald Trump. I think he's done a wonderful job. I enjoyed his first 4 years. Yes, I'm sure you could point to mistakes he's made. Anybody who says they never made a mistake is a liar. Everybody makes mistakes. I've made mistakes in my life, but you learn from them. And I think you can see the difference between Donald's first 4 years and now moving into this just a little over a month. He knows who he can trust. He's gotten the right people. So I believe working with him will not be an issue for me.
Okay. Well, Ed Durr, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sean Spiller is joining me in the studio, a Democratic candidate for governor. Welcome. It's so good to see you here.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. You have a lot of titles: teacher, former mayor, president of the New Jersey Education Association, dad. You've got a lot going on. Why did you decide to run for governor? Why now?
Because really, I look at it, this is our chance. This is our chance to have something different, to do something different, to have someone who's fighting for us with every single decision that I make. I've seen for far too long, we elect folks, we get out there, we work for them, we talk to them about our issues. But then when it comes time to do something about it, maybe they nibble around the edges, maybe they keep us in mind sometimes, but often they don't. And we know who they often get influenced by, right? We're seeing it at the national level in a huge way, but it happens here in our state as well. And this is the chance to say no, as working class, as a teacher, somebody who knows the fight that folks are going through right now to make things work for their families. This is the chance to step forward and say, I'm going to center our issues and make sure that we do things in this state to make life a little bit easier for them.
As you're out and about, one of the issues that is always an issue, no matter what office you're running for, what year it is, it's affordability. Yeah. This is an issue right now, as are other things from immigration to education. What are the three areas that you're honing in on the most as you hit this campaign for governor?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's about affordability, right? And I look at the big drivers, right? It's housing. So we've got to make sure we're addressing that, and certainly proud of what we've done in Montclair, passing the first ever rent control law. but also it's about making sure folks can afford that first home. For me, it was a multifamily home after years of looking, but those options aren't there anymore. With LLCs and corporations gobbling those up, we've got to create an opportunity for real folks like you and me to be able to buy something first, not be driven up on your mortgage prices and other things. So it's making sure you can own that first home. It's making sure that when we're building and putting in the affordable housing that's required in each community, we're not leaving our towns alone to do it. We're seeing a lot of backlash in the state right now. Folks saying that's not the character of our community. It doesn't feel right. It's because developers are building 400 units, only 20 are affordable, and municipalities don't really have the leverage because they don't have the dollars. As governor, I'd invest to say, hey, we're going to build 50 units, 20 affordable, 20 workforce housing. We're going to add senior housing, get things much more in scale with what the community needs. So we've got to address housing. We've got to address healthcare. It goes up 20% increases year over year, and folks say, my gosh, here we go again. Am I going to get the healthcare I need or put the food on the table? I've done something about that, right? As the leader of NJEA, we designed healthcare plans that have saved billions of dollars. We need to do that more broadly. We've got to address the cost of childcare, early education, average $19,000 for families. If you can get through, because there's so many waiting lists, we've got to get more folks doing that work. We've got to change how people are reimbursed, not for attendance, but for enrollment so they can stay open, get more people access to that. We've got to address right now, yes, the environment, because it's energy costs. We're seeing those bill increases right now. And it's because all those alternative energy sources that were going to come online in our grid are being pulled back at the national level. We've got to invest in that, making sure we're allowing folks to be able to get energy sources in a renewable green energy economy, but also providing the energy we need at a lower cost. There's just so many things around affordability, right? Make things a little bit easier to afford. Those are big pieces that I'm focused on, with the understanding that there's a backdrop. There's a guy right now who's trying to eliminate the Department of Education and the impact that's going to have. There's somebody who's going after Medicaid, which so many young folks, seniors as well, rely on. There's somebody who is just trying to divide us. I say that as an immigrant myself, coming to this country as a young boy. So I understand that clearly as well, and I think it's important to stand up to that. Quite frankly, I think he's a bully, and I've got that experience. Took on the first bully we had in the state with Chris Christie, and I think did a great job in terms of making sure we stood up for folks, stood up for our values, but also got things done. And I think that's going to matter in this environment right now as well.
Yeah. Chris Christie, NJEA, they very much went at it. He wanted teachers to contribute to their healthcare plans. I want to step back a little bit.
And he was just mean, right? And I'd say that because we can have policy debates and discussions, but when you are, yelling at people, in meetings in a position of power, sit down, be quiet. That's not who governor should be. That's not who a president should be. You can have policy conversations. You can have discussions of what you think someone should or shouldn't do. Open to have that debate and discussion, but not in a way that vilifies, demonizes. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, even at the federal level. It's not just about what's happening. It's also how it's happening.
And that'll be interesting to see once the Democratic and Republican primaries in New Jersey have finished and it's on to the general election. The Democrats, there are 6 running. When we hosted a debate, everybody was very respectful on the Democratic side to each other. What I want to get to, though, is, when you're talking about affordability, it ties into education at the local level. It's most of our tax bill is going to pay for schools. And you've talked about the school funding formula, wanting to do something about this. Covering Trenton, it seems like nobody really understands how schools are funded. You're the president of the New Jersey Education Association. Again, represents the teachers union. What type of insight, what light switch can you turn on that can actually address and affect change to make things more affordable while ensuring our children are being educated? Because when you look at the success rate of a lot of schools, the numbers are not there. Our kids are not succeeding. They're failing. They're not able to read in a lot of urban areas all over the state.
Yeah, I think some of the challenges, when you watch DC, when you watch Trenton and DC, both of them, they're always like chasing it, right? They're always up against some deadline, rushing to get something done, but they never are looking at the issue when you've got a little bit of time. Right now, the school funding formula that we have in New Jersey, as it was designed and built, was supposed to be reviewed, right? It's supposed to take a look at it, what changes need to be made. Hasn't happened. And every year I testify in front of the budget committees and I say, guys, let's look at the formula, let's make changes. We don't have time right now, let's throw some money maybe here or there, put a little Band-Aid on a problem, we move on to the next year. Nobody talks about it again until the next budget cycle, right? And that process doesn't get you what you need. What we need to do with the school funding formula is take into account the dollars that districts get for students with special needs. There's very varied cost for varying needs of students. But right now the formula does not take that into account. So what you're seeing is district in one district versus another, they might have very large costs, another district maybe smaller costs, but again that formula just gives that same amount for the number of students with special needs. It doesn't work, right? We've also got to look at it and say there's some other things we need to round off, right? Districts are being hit by somebody moves into town, maybe they're a little bit more wealthy, it changes the formula in terms of the ability of the community to pay, and all of a sudden, we see the costs go up and folks say, what happened, right? And we can average that, right? Take more years into account, things like that. So bottom line is we need to be looking at the formula, right? Comprehensively having those conversations to say, what are the areas that need to be changed? How do we make sure it's still providing the dollars and services that our students need? And I think that's a broader conversation that needs to happen earlier. And we always call for it. I say that as an educator, and certainly as governor, I would make sure that we're focusing on that.
15, 20 seconds left. Yeah. What separates you from the other candidates running for governor? It is a crowded field on the Democratic side.
Yeah, I say this. It's not just the issues that we're talking about, it's the credibility of who's talking about them, right? I'm the person who, as I said before, it took 2 years to be able to buy that first home. It's real for me. I'm the person who's got the 4-year-old and 7-year-old. Those childcare costs, those early education costs, it's real for me. I'm the person who's been that labor leader fighting for folks because I see those double-digit health cost increases, hurting every single person and our families. I'm the person that right now understands the impact of the environmental changes and the cost of doing nothing when I see floods every other year as mayor. I've lived these things, and I'm going to be fighting for every single one of us because it's personal to me when I talk about every one of these issues.
Sean, thank you so much for taking your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Good to see you.
I appreciate it. You
Absolutely.
too.
Yep. We'll continue our series with more candidates for governor here in New Jersey in the weeks ahead. That is going to do it, though, for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.
New Jersey packs a lot of wow into every winter getaway.
Wow.
Find your wow at visitnj.org. New Jersey, little state, lot of wow.